My name's Lynette Mather. I'm the Manager of Provincial Operations for Ontario for Ducks Unlimited Canada, and I'm beyond excited to be here today. This is a really big day for wetlands and a big day for Ducks Unlimited and for all of those practitioners of wetland conservation. So I'm really pleased to see everybody here. Thank you for coming out, and hang on for a really great ride. Things are about to get very, very exciting for wetlands in Ontario. So it gives me, I'll be your MC for the day, introducing your speakers and kind of helping to keep things organized. And it gives me tremendous pleasure. It's a great honor to introduce the Honorable Catherine McGarry, Minister of Natural Resources and Forestry.
Thank you. Well, good morning, everybody. Can you even imagine a better backdrop for what we're about to talk about today? It's fantastic. Thank you so much for coming today. Apparently, some of the cab drivers were not even sure where to go to find the place, which means this is a hidden jewel here in Toronto. I think the first time I saw it when I was having a tour of the Port Authority, the Toronto Port, and the driver drove around this side, and I'm looking over across the water and thought, that's not the area I remember from growing up in Toronto. And here we are. It's just really fantastic. So bonjour, bozo, and sego. Thanks again for joining us here today. It's fabulous. But I would really like to start by recognizing the long history of First Nations and Métis peoples in Ontario and acknowledge that we're on the traditional territory of the Mississaugas of the New Credit. I'm also pleased to be joined this morning by Greg Weeks. Greg, can you give a little wave there? The Senior Director for Ontario with Ducks Unlimited Canada, and also Brian Denny, Chief Executive Officer, Secretary Treasurer, Toronto and Region Conservation Authority, and all other folks here today. I really wanted to start off today in talking about wetlands, talking about the familiarity I have with wetlands. As many of you know, I live in now the rural township of North Dumfries Township, and I am surrounded by wetlands. I live on the edge of a bog. It's a Class 1 wetland, and it's called the Sudden Bog because of the farmer that used to have it, not suddenly there was a bog. But I also face what was a pond is now a marsh. We have a number of lakes. I'm about 2 kilometers as a crow flies from the Grand River, and we have a number of other marshes and wetlands in my whole area. Not only can I talk a good story about mosquitoes, but it also means that the biodiversity that comes along with wetlands is very much around my neighborhood. I talk about the sandhill cranes. My husband and I saw the first nesting pair of sandhill cranes in our area since 1929. You know, I came upon a green smooth snake, again an endangered species. We have bluebirds. We have a number of different endangered and threatened birds. And last summer, somebody from MNRF was out in the Sudden Bog with myself and my husband, and we came upon the smooth false foxglove. And it's a plant that is only found in about 5 areas in Ontario, and one of them is 2 fields behind my house. So when we are talking about wetlands and biodiversity, I live in the middle of that, and it is just an incredible place. Conservation authorities, and in particularly the TRCA, have a long legacy of wetland conservation and restoration through the watersheds that they all oversee. And again, I'm in the Grand River Conservation Authority area, and I know about the work that they do. The restoration and management of this coastal wetland in Tommy Thompson Park is a great example of how this valuable piece of land works in order to ensure that wetlands remain a functioning part of Ontario's ecosystem. Wetlands, like the coastal marshes found here in Tommy Thompson Park, are rich in biodiversity. And we knew that because as soon as the car door opened, all we could hear is birds, and we're actually watching some of the birds and the waterfowl fly around us as we talk about here. But as you know, we have lost wetlands due to climate change, invasive species, pollution, and land conversion. And we also know that about 72% of the wetlands in southern Ontario have been lost. Now we have a greater understanding of all that wetlands do for us, and that wasn't true decades ago. Our approach in the past failed to recognize the many social, economic, and environmental benefits provided by wetlands, including improving our water quality, providing valuable recreational opportunities, giving our diverse wetlands and wildlife a home, and minimizing and mitigating the effects of flooding and climate change. And interestingly, yesterday in Cambridge, I was with my federal colleague to announce another project to rehabilitate the stormwater pond that was actually behind us at the backdrop. And it was a municipality that's starting to recognize the value of having wetlands and stormwater ponds there to manage their flooding. A recent study undertaken by the Intact Center on Climate Adaptation, with support from my ministry in Ducks Unlimited Canada, examined the financial cost of a major flood event in urban and rural areas. And it found that leaving wetlands intact can reduce the financial cost of floods by up to 38%. And I think that municipalities, after the spring that we've had, are finally opening their eyes and ears to this fact. As we learn more about wetlands, we have come to value them even more. Over the past decade, we have made tremendous progress in protecting wetlands through land use planning and in restoring wetlands through working with all of our partners. While it's true that many important policies and programs are already in place to protect Ontario's wetlands, the ongoing changing climate and continued alteration from human activities are formidable new challenges that require us to take action now. Today, I'm pleased to share with you a new wetland strategy that builds on what we've achieved so far to ensure that wetlands remain a valuable part of Ontario's landscape. A wetland conservation strategy for Ontario will provide a common focus and a path forward for wetland conservation across the province. Our government wants to ensure that Ontario's wetlands are valued, conserved, and restored. With the strategy I'm releasing today, we are setting targets around halting the loss of wetlands by 2025 and moving in the other direction, ensuring wetland gains by year 2030. Reaching those targets requires coordinated efforts and a clear plan of action, and that's exactly what this strategy provides. Through extensive consultation, this document, as you know, have been shaped by many voices, and many of those voices have joined us here today. We have held engagement sessions for stakeholders, for Indigenous communities. We've received hundreds of comments and suggestions, and we've listened. We carefully considered the comments that we have received, and that is what is reflected in this final strategy, which will be a framework to guide the future of wetland conservation. And I'm going to do a bit of show and tell. Isn't that fabulous? That won't be the only time you see it, I promise. But I really want to thank all of you that are here today that have helped to contribute their valuable perspectives and those that couldn't join us today. It's a tremendous amount of work by so many people to come together to provide this strategy that balances wetland conservation with a consideration of community needs. And we'll be reporting on our progress towards achieving those targets every 5 years, starting in year 2020. These progress reports will help to keep us on track and make it easier to identify any course corrections that are required. And most of all, we will make sure that we are transparent with our stakeholders like yourself, as well as the general public. Part of our plan includes a strengthened partnerships with Ducks Unlimited Canada to chair a committee on wetland conservation policy and engaging in wetland restoration projects that focus on the wetlands that are most at risk. This committee, comprised of stakeholders from the environmental groups, from industry, from conservation authorities, and Indigenous representatives, will provide the Ontario government with advice and guidance on issues related to wetland conservation in Ontario. So I'm also pleased today to announce that the province will be providing $1.9 million to Ducks Unlimited to work along with other partners to restore wetlands in southern Ontario. And that also deserves a big round of applause, don't you think? We are so fortunate to have such great partnerships with us. This work will support the proposed Canada-Ontario Action Plan for Lake Erie to reduce phosphorus levels, as well as the long-standing Eastern Habitat Joint Venture, and I couldn't be more pleased. I can't tell you how many articles I've looked at recently that are talking about potential for a blue-green algae bloom. This work is absolutely vital, not only to Ontario, but to those municipalities that depend on those water sources. It is worth noting that to date, the partners in the Eastern Habitat Joint Venture have succeeded in protecting over 400,000 hectares of wetland and associated upland habitat right here in Ontario. That's an incredible feat in today's society. We really value the work that our partners at Ducks Unlimited Canada do with us and alongside us, and we look forward to continuing our joint efforts to conserve and restore wetlands. Wetlands, as you know, are among the most productive and diverse habitats on Earth. Let's work together to conserve, protect, and restore our wetlands and Ontario's rich biodiversity. So this new strategy, again, I think there's going to be a take-home at the end of the day, and you can look at it yourself. But our renewed partnership with Ducks Unlimited Canada will help to make sure that they continue to be a key part of our landscape in years to come. I can't tell you how proud I am to release this today and in such an incredible setting, and to have all of you join us and celebrate the great work we are all doing together here in Ontario. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Minister. I'd just like to echo the Minister's comments that the strategy was a huge collaborative effort with lots of input from all stakeholders. And at DU, we've never been more encouraged or more inspired by the collaborative and collective interest in wetland conservation throughout industry and wetland conservation practitioners and environmental groups. So it is a good time for conservation in Ontario and a great time for wetlands. I'd like to introduce a good friend next, and a good friend of Ducks Unlimited Canada, and also my boss as a senior director on our national board of directors, Greg Weeks, to say a few words on behalf of Ducks Unlimited. And I'd also at this time like to recognize another director who's in the crowd today, Director Phil Holst. Could you raise your hand there? And Phil comes from Oxford County, so he drove in for this event today and is also on our national board of directors. So Greg, would you like to come up and say a few words?
I have to put my glasses on. I've been enjoying the view, but I can't see 2 feet in front of me. Good morning, everyone, and thank you, Minister, for the kind invitation for us to be here today. You know, Ducks Unlimited was formed almost 80 years ago, and it's been a successful conservation organization, probably one of the most successful conservation organizations in North America, and that's because our founders realized the importance of partnerships. You can't accomplish good work in conservation unless you include everyone at the table. And our work with the Ministry of Natural Resources and Forests here in Ontario goes back 40 years, and they've been a very, very strong partner of ours. And we've been able to accomplish great things together, whether it's building Hullet Marsh just outside of London, the Marl Lake, Tiny Marsh, Matchedash Bay, the Ontario Eastern Habitat Joint Venture was a realistic accomplishment of ours because of that collaboration. We collaborate with conservation authorities and with all stakeholders, and the accomplishment of this here today, Minister, is a very, very significant milestone for all of us. I am ecstatic as a volunteer with Ducks Unlimited and as a senior director for Ontario. I know Phil Holst, one of our other directors, personally works on building wetlands in his own area. He's the real deal. And we're all committed to seeing that wetlands are not only preserved, but expanded as we go forward, because we all know of the importance. They're critically important, not only as habitat, but as green infrastructure. And we all know about the good things that they do for flood mitigation. I spent 40 years in the insurance industry, and I can personally attest to the fact that flood is now the #1 cause of loss, property loss here in Ontario, and by building more wetlands, we're all going to be more financially secure as we go forward. So on behalf of all the volunteers at Ducks Unlimited, the thousands of them that we have who work tirelessly, on behalf of our staff, on behalf of our board of directors, I would like to thank the minister and the province for this initiative as we move forward into the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Greg. And you certainly made an important point about partnerships. Funding for Ducks Unlimited Canada is funding for wetland conservationists across Ontario, because what we do is take our few resources, our limited staff complement, and spread out like little ants across Ontario and empower wetland restoration practitioners to do what we do in Southern Ontario. So it's good news for everybody, good news for wetlands. I'd also now like to introduce Brian Denny, CEO of the Toronto Region Conservation Authority, to come up and say a few words.
Good morning, Minister and guests. Thank you very much for being here this morning. It's a delightful morning. These things don't just happen, you know. The flybys we've arranged so that hundreds of people from all over North America would see us here and come to appreciate wetlands. The TRCA has arranged all of that, and just delighted to share this beautiful morning with you. I want to acknowledge Karen McDonald. Many of you met Karen. Karen's a critical member of our restoration and infrastructure team and actually looks after all of our activities here at Tommy Thompson Park and elsewhere. And Colin Love, who's at the back. Colin is from our education team, and Colin's been working with our colleagues at Ducks Unlimited to bring hundreds of students from Toronto area schools down here to get their hands dirty and do some actual wetland planting. So we already have a great collaboration with Ducks Unlimited here and elsewhere, and look forward to growing that in the future. And Jennifer is also here, I think, and she does all the day-to-day management of our activities here at Tommy Thompson Park, some of which is ongoing construction just across the road. The minister talked about some of her early connections. I've been at TRCA long enough that I remember a time when this was part of the lake. And in my early career, I was fortunate enough to be on the dredge that was actually deepening the outer harbor behind us and pumping the sand in to create all of these spits. And also have been around long enough to be involved with the community in a really important master planning process that became quite transformative for TRCA. We were working with hundreds of people who, to their credit, saw the potential of this place being a natural wilderness, almost literally in the shadow of the CN Tower. At one point, it was just going to be a breakwater for a new port. Then it was going to be a very active small craft harbor site. But through the involvement of hundreds, actually thousands of people, we came to develop this master plan for this place that has wetlands as a big part of it. This is one of the early pilots. Just across the road, there's another 150 acres that we're actively developing. It's actually started its life as a combined material disposal facility dealing with contaminated dredge material from the harbor. Now we're in the process of converting it into a beautiful, pristine wildlife habitat and wetland complex. So I hope you get a few minutes to look at it while you're here. I want to congratulate you, Minister, on your leadership to get the get the wetland strategy developed and unveiled so ceremoniously here this morning. Congratulations to you and your team. I also want to, on behalf of Conservation Ontario and all of the CAs in the province, thank you for your leadership in the review of the Conservation Authorities Act and the modernization proposed improvements to that legislation. Kim Gavin is here on behalf of Conservation Ontario, and I know all of the authorities really appreciate your leadership and that of the staff team. Many of them are here this morning. that did some extensive consultation and some really innovative work on how we might modernize the Act and prepare conservation authorities for their ongoing involvement in the work that you identified. It's been part of our work from the very beginning, protecting and creating wetlands, and increasingly now, particularly in our part of the world where there's so much urbanization pressure, the process of building new wetlands is a big part of what we do. And this is a perfect example, but it's one of thousands. You talked about the importance of stormwater management structures. In our authority, we have over 1,000 stormwater management facilities, many of which provide important wetland habitat. And in their next generation, I think, as municipalities see the benefit of those facilities for more than just water management, that will have even more improvements to those facilities as well. We certainly look forward to continuing our partnership with Ducks Unlimited, with the Ministry of Natural Resources and Forestry, and many other partners to advance the importance of wetlands being protected and recreated in Ontario. And you know that conservation authorities are there as a partner of choice and a preferred mechanism for municipalities and for the public to come together and develop comprehensive plans to create places like this. And we're just delighted to be part of this, really pleased that you chose to have the announcement at this facility, and hope that you'll have a few minutes to let Karen and some of the other staff members show you some of the highlights of the park. So congratulations to everybody that's involved in the wetland strategy, and please accept from me on behalf of TRCA and the conservation authorities in Ontario our commitment to continue to advance this important agenda to protect and create new wetlands in Ontario. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Brian. And yes, this is a really remarkable place. Kevin Rich, who is our head of industry and government relations, is a native Torontonian. Oh, there he is. I'm stretching the back there. Is a native Torontonian and was giving me a little bit of that history in the cab ride over. So it's a special place in his heart as well. Thank you, Minister McGarry, for making this day possible. It's a huge win for wetlands in Ontario, and it's a huge event in our lives and a great day for conservation in Ontario. So thank you. So I believe there is a tour that TRCA will be taking the minister on, and with that, I believe that wraps up the events today. So I'd like to thank everyone for attending. Thank all of those partners that have collaborated and provided input to this into the strategy for coming out today. Thank you.